Hello, this is the Kratom Sobriety Podcast. I'm Charlie, and this is episode 81. And this week I'm with Jasmine.
Hello, happy to be here.
Yes, many of you might know Jasmine from episode 61, where she told her story about quitting Kratom. And she's also going to be joining us as a co-host alongside Chris and Jacob. So welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, it is truly an honor to be here very early on in my Kratom sobriety. This podcast has just helped me so much, just hearing other people's stories. And I'm really excited to dive in and just continue to hear more and more stories and be a co-host. So thank you.
Yes, we appreciate you contributing and we're excited. Yeah, this week we have an interview with Blaine, and he sits down with Jacob to talk about his addiction. He has an interesting story in the fact that he did try to go with Suboxone as a treatment option, and he actually had trouble with it. He had some bad reactions to it, felt like he wanted to overuse it and abuse it, and he felt the withdrawals were harder than Kratom, so he didn't go that route. You know, we want to tell the whole story. We're supportive of medicated assisted treatment, but we recognize that it's not for everybody. And it's not something we're forcing on people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, can you give us a life update since your episode a couple of months ago?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did my episode a couple of months ago, and now I'm going on 5 months of Kratom sobriety, which I have not been tracking my sobriety day by day like I did when I first got sober from alcohol. So these months have just been flying by, which is a good thing, and lots of life updates. I recently got married back in May, and what a blessing that was to get married sober from Kratom too. That's been super exciting. Moved into a new house with my husband, started a new job. So just lots of different changes, but just really working to get the word out about what I believe to be, the dangers of Kratom, and really trying to have a voice in this community. So thank you for, allowing me to be here to do that.
Yeah, congratulations. And
Thank you.
have a podcast with a friend of yours called Clean Sips. Do you want to do a short plug about that?
Yeah. It's called Clean Sips. We started it a little bit over a year ago, I believe. And we just like to talk about all things sobriety. So my best friend, Katie, is my co-host, and she's also sober, has been sober her whole life. So it's cool perspectives of someone who's been sober their whole life. And then me, who I've kind of struggled with substances on and off. We like to talk about, making friends sober. We talk about just building different relationships, how to have fun sober, the social anxiety that can be around it sometimes, and how to cope with that, mental health, just everything. So really enjoy doing that.
Okay. We'll put a link in the show notes about that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
The subject I wanted to talk about today is something I think you can relate to. And I just listened to you guys' most recent episode. And this is an email we got from a listener. And I think this is common in the Kratom quitting world. So this is what the listener writes. I'm also a person who has been involved in a 12-step community. I've remained abstinent from alcohol for 8 years, but all this time I've been dishonest with my AA community that I was sober while I was using Kratom daily. I rationalize this, quote, if you had my job, you'd use Kratom too, unquote, etc. I still have not admitted my use to my AA friends. I'm not sure if I have the courage to do so, because I'd be so afraid that the people I have been very close to will not forgive me for my deceit. That's a tough dilemma to be in. And I think because Kratom is touted as a harm reducer, that it's legal, that it's kind of a get out of jail free pie. And then some of us didn't even know that it had addictive quality. So but I think you just faced this issue with grace. You want to tell us about your experience, Jasmine?
Definitely. The topic of Kratom in general is just so polarizing. There's some gray areas there, but mostly those who support it or who don't support it or have been addicted to it. From my point, I just completely identify with that email, especially what the person said about if you had my job too, you would use Kratom, because I first discovered Kratom when I got sober from alcohol, and still very much considered myself sober. When I was taking Kratom, I was a user of the kava Kratom extracts. So very much considered myself sober. It was a wellness tonic, in my opinion, until it really escalated. And I was in a really toxic job too. It helped me cope with my job. And at the same time, I was still doing my sobriety podcast while using Kratom. Very honest about that. And I had a lot of shame around preaching about sobriety in general and using Kratom at the same time. And the more I abused Kratom, the more I was like, I can't open up about this because it feels so deceitful. I have people that look up to me that are really going to be disappointed in me when I open up about this. And that was not the case at all. I was received with a lot of grace. And I think giving yourself grace in those situations where you think that people are going to take it a lot harder or be upset with you for hiding something, is having grace for yourself in those situations is really, really important, because in the long run, it's your health that matters, and you want to make sure you're taking care of yourself. So for me, opening up to people about it was the best thing I could have done. It's the reason I'm still sober today, because of the support of people around me, because you can't do that on your own.
Yeah. I find when I get in situations like that or similar dilemmas, that it's often way worse in my head and the way I'm projecting onto the situation than when you finally go ahead and talk about it. Was that your experience?
Yes, absolutely. When I was struggling with my addiction to Kratom, it was just anxiety in my head all the time about the debt that I was in, the lies that I was telling people and myself. And then when I finally opened up about it, people were actually relieved because they thought there was something else wrong with me, because I had gotten really ill and just couldn't get out of bed at a certain point. So it's, the best thing you can do for yourself is open up about it, for sure.
One thing I wanted to ask you about that I hadn't heard anybody ever talk about, but using delivery to get the Kratom brought to your house. I just recently discovered that there's a 24-hour gas station that sells those products. I'm kind of really grateful that I wasn't aware of that place while I was using, because I think it would have made things worse. There would be like this 12-hour period every day that I couldn't buy Kratom between 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. in my area, and it automatic break every day. And sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night with really bad withdrawals, but I just can imagine a mess. So then I just thought about the potential to have that delivered to you, to your home,
It is so incredibly dangerous. I was definitely doing that. You could Uber Eats the Kava Kratom shots to your home without even being ID'd for them most of the time too. So that was super dangerous. That was where a lot of my money was spent on like those fees for Uber Eats. And it just got to a point where I had already gone to like all my gas stations for the day. So it's time to order them in. And it's just living in freedom from that is just the best, truly. But yeah, no shame, because I get it. I totally understand.
Yeah. Well, at 5 months free, how's your life today? Just in a nutshell, it sounds like you're doing a lot better.
I am doing so much better, truly in the midst of the addiction. I didn't think there was going to be a life outside of Kratom. I was like, how am I supposed to cope without this? I'll either be, severely depressed, have to go through withdrawals, whatever it is. I mean, that happened, but it was very short term. I just want to tell that to anybody who's struggling with the thought of detoxing or withdrawing and how scary that seems, but it truly is only temporary for the outcome of the rest of your life, being able to be free from that. So yeah, life has been really good. I feel like it's ironic because a lot of people take Kratom to become more focused, more productive, more energetic. And that's what it was doing for me at first. And then it slowly became just this thing that completely just destroyed my work ethic, my ambition, my personality. And now I feel like I can just take on the world compared to where I was, 5 months ago, going through the worst part of my addiction. So I hear on this podcast a lot, people will say it works until it doesn't, and it starts working against you eventually.
Yeah, this idea of Kratom turning on you. Well, this is a great note to end on such a positive tone, and we'll go to the interview with Blaine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, Kratom Quitters. This is Jacob, and this week on the podcast, we have got Blaine. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well also. Thank you. So how would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners of the podcast?
My name is Blaine, born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. For the most part of my life, I stayed close to home. I went to college, got my bachelor's in kinesiology at LSU in Baton Rouge, and then came back home. I work in physical therapy now. I am a PTA, which is a physical therapist assistant. We treat patients, but we don't do like the evaluations, reassessment. It's great because a lot less paperwork, just more hands-on stuff. Huge family, man. My mom's one of 12, grew up with a lot of cousins, even with my dad being one of 5. So strong family ties all my life. So that's been a great support system, even dealing with what I've dealt with everything. I guess those are kind of basics.
It's awesome. That is a huge family. 12 or 11 aunts and uncles, and then 5 on your dad's side. Wow. Cool. That's great. You don't hear that too much these days.
No, it's fun.
While we're on the fun stuff, any hobbies or anything you like to do for fun when you're not working?
What kind of drew me into kinesiology was just human movement in general. I have been exercising just about my whole life, working out. Probably started when I was like 11, go to the gym a few times a week, cardio, like running. And fun fact, anybody into Dragon Ball Z, the reason I started trying to get stronger was because of Goku. I've kept that motivation for the last few decades. Really nerdy, awesome. But that's what got me to start working out in like 6th grade. And also really into video games, anime, stuff like that. I even have a little indie game blog I started recently. It's really small, but just something I'm doing on the side. And just watching sports too. Huge Saints fan, being from New Orleans, Pelicans, just sports in general. I've enjoyed the Olympics, and they're literally ending today. All that kind of stuff.
Let's talk about maybe some of the not so fun stuff. So why don't you tell me a little bit about how you first encountered Kratom and how you got to try it?
Yeah, definitely. I'm actually one of those who didn't actually drink till it was legal, till I was 21. And I feel like overall, I had a healthy relationship with alcohol, not until the last few years that I feel like maybe, I don't really like where my consumption's going. It happened gradually and all at once. And I think it was like late 2019. I thought, man, I don't like, and I feel like I've heard this from a lot of people, I don't like how much I'm drinking. Let me try to find some safer alternative. That's where it started. Again,
okay.
I know we don't,
like many people.
And I feel like I've heard that a lot. But I was just in a regular old gas station one day and checking out. I saw a little like $5 drink shot. It was just like really feel good, relax. And I was like, oh, let me try this. And the first one I tried, I didn't really feel anything. So I guess that's a waste of time. But then I thought maybe I'd try it again. I think I took 2 at a time maybe. And I felt something. I was like, oh, this feels great. So that's how it started. And obviously didn't get better from there. What's crazy is I didn't even do any research. I just saw it. And sadly, I've seen this too, assumed it was safe. And I wish I did research at this point. I just saw it on a gas station counter and thought I'd try it.
But why not? It's a product that's sold in the store.
Right. It's cheap. It's just sitting here. That particular one that I tried was cheap. We know it's not always like that. But as far as usage progressing, it was like really slow. Snuck up on me. Like I said, I don't remember my exact time I started, but it had to be around the end of 2019. Little by little, the ones I started with were really cheap. And I can remember the first time I started to feel like I had a problem was actually probably like middle of 2020, like the summer. I think it was June to be specific. I remember the first day I spent a whole $20 on it. And I was like, oh, why did I do this today? I think I bought 3 or 4 different shots and I was like, that's concerning. Why did I feel the need to do that? That's when I think I first started to feel like it might start to be becoming a problem.
Okay. And were you always using like the extracts and the different types of shots?
No, I started exploring as I felt like slowly getting a dependence on it. I started to try stronger shots that were more expensive individually. I started trying pills. I never tried the powder personally, so I can't attest to that. But I started going for some pills too, like stronger ones, and that added up, hitting my wallet. Just you build up that dependence and that tolerance, and you just feel like you need stronger and stronger things and more. That obviously became a problem too.
It's funny how it can progress like that, and before you know it, you're spending more, and your usage is just ramping up.
It was like gradually and all at once, like really scary.
When did you really start to notice that, okay, this is a problem and that might need to think about quitting, or how did that go for you?
So I had mentioned like June 2020, I started to get a little nervous. I thought I'd spend too much in one day. I wasn't sure why I felt the need to take that much throughout the day.
Yep.
I even told my girlfriend, I'm really starting to not feel like myself. And that's when I first told her I was taking Kratom. So we had been dating for 3 months at that point. I'd approximate I had been using it for maybe 7 or 8. And then my usage over the months she knew I was on it, but my usage gradually increased. But as you probably heard before, I started to hide how much I was taking. I started to feel like this might not be good. I'd sneak it around. Just got, again, out of control slowly, but all at once. I was starting to get those withdrawals as the summer and fall went on. If it was too long between doses, I feel like, oh crap, I don't like this feeling, but I know it's going to stop it.
Yeah.
So I would get more. So I'd say into later 2020, I was starting to really be like, you know what? It was like late 2020, maybe like the late fall. I was like, I need to try to see about stopping this. It's not working.
Okay. And at that point, did you stop for a while?
Well, I've had 2 to 3 quits. This last one obviously has been permanent. My girlfriend, I told her what's going on. I think I really feel like I need to stop, and you need to make a plan, like a tapering plan. And I did, but I'm the kind of person who really just can't taper. So I was like, I had to go cold turkey, and the withdrawals were terrible. Just the anxiety, depression, it really wasn't feeling good. And I got into a bad car wreck December 2020 and actually broke my neck and had a fusion.
Oh, man, I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm doing great now. It was bad.
Good.
Going through all of this too. I slipped and got back on it, and it was in secret. I eventually told my girlfriend, my loved ones later, but it was after I'd already been on it again for a bit, and started all up again going into 2021.
Okay, so you had the car accident late 2020.
Yes.
You recover.
Relapse at that point.
Then late into 2021, you're back on it. Yes. Your next time on it, did you find that you progressed further? Did you maintain the same level of addiction? How was that?
Oh, great question. No, it kept progressing. It got really bad.
Okay. It usually does.
No, definitely. That's a good question. No, it got worse. And I was like, man, like I really got to stop. Just many reasons. Just being dependent on something that's never happened to me, like throughout the whole day, or you can't function. Really, credit card debt, just the way my checking account's terrible.
All right. So you're spending too much money on it. You're finding yourself physically dependent and going through withdrawals during the day when you're not dosing as much. So then at that point, did you quit again in late 2021, or did you use into 2022? Where did it go from there?
So I did. This was a pretty long straight because I did use into 2022. And like I said, the symptoms going between doses, taking so much where I would get really nauseous and vomit if I did too much, but then feel like I still couldn't stop. That all just progressed going into the rest of 2021 and into 2022, honestly. And I tried to look for other alternatives, but they just weren't doing it, weren't helping with the withdrawals, the cravings. Oh yeah, the cravings are terrible too. I never thought I'd betray that.
Oh, the cravings can be real bad, especially when you're I found the cravings to be sometimes even worse once you got through like the acute phase, but then you were like, you weren't fully like healed. And you're still having some of the anxiety, but maybe it's not the physical stuff. I
realized a big part of it, I'm just looking at my notes of my journey, and I realized something. Late 2021, I actually did another quit. And this is a really annoying story. I would go to the smoke shop, and I got a lot of my Kratom there. And finally, it was actually November 2021. I was like, I have to do this. I'm going to stop. And I took this alternative. I know I can't mention brands or anything, but it was another pill that I did research on. Read the ingredients. There was like no word about Kratom in it. And I was on those for a few months. And then one day a guy at the smoke shop said, those are Kratom. And I was like, no way. And in my addict brain, I was like, I've been on it all this time anyway. I'm just going to keep on going. It was a pill, purple. That's all I'll say. I think the guy didn't know what he was talking about because I still don't think that was Kratom. But my addict brain justified it like, oh, I thought I quit, but I haven't. So I'm just going to keep going.
Okay.
And everybody thought I quit. My girlfriend thought I quit for the second time. Everybody thought I wasn't on it. And then I was just hiding. I was like, I felt so guilty. I was like, I really need to stop. And I said, I'm going to stop any day now, but I just couldn't.
I found myself saying that all the time too. At the beginning of the day, I was gung ho. And then by lunchtime, I was at the smoke shop buying more stuff.
Exactly. I know that feeling. It was my lunch breaks too a lot of the time.
Gets to be super annoying. When did you get to the point where you were able to quit for good, and when did that happen?
I don't know how religious anyone is, but I think this was divine intervention. I am a type 1 diabetic, and I got home from work one day and I used an insulin pen, And I couldn't find this thing anywhere. I was looking all over my bed and in the couch, and I couldn't find it. My girlfriend said, "Oh, let me help you." And she took my car key, ran out to the car to see if it was in there. And there was just Kratom bottles and labels everywhere. And that's how she found out. And turns out the insulin pen was in the house, like on the bed. So it was like, wow. But I am so glad she did that, because I broke down. I was like, I've been hiding this for months and I can't do this on my own. I need help. And that was late March 2022. And I went to an outpatient program.
So you've been sober for a good 2 years now.
Today's 867 days.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Congrats. Great to hear that. What was the outpatient program like? And tell me all about that.
I really don't think I could have done it without that. I just knew I couldn't do it on my own. So we looked up something that wasn't as intense as, I don't think it was at the point I needed like inpatient detox or anything, but I needed assistance and more support. So it was like 2 times a week in the evenings, super flexible, friendly to work schedule. I think it was like 7 or 8 p.m. for 2 hours, 2 times a week. And you'd go, there was a great like guidance counselor leading all the meetings in there with maybe 8 other people who were just struggling with various substances. It could have been anything: alcohol, heroin, fentanyl. As far as I know, I was the only one dealing with Kratom, but they still had experience, and they had like random urine tests during the sessions to hold you accountable, because they can't test for Kratom, he said, with a certain kind of like test. So they would do that for me specifically.
Oh, because that's the standard like 12 panel or whatever doesn't test for it. Okay. Yeah. Did they help you get through the detox with anything, or did you have to do that on your own cold turkey again? How did that work?
Oh man, actually, I'm so glad you said that, because can we talk about mat therapy?
We can totally talk about mat therapy.
Okay, just making sure, because I was one of the ones who tried Suboxone and it really didn't work for me.
Okay, let's talk about that then.
Yep, definitely. This is right under the Kratom quit date. I have my Suboxone quit dates. That's how intense the Suboxone was for me.
All right. Okay. So they gave you that to initially detox when you entered the program, or?
They did after a few weeks. I think they have to wait or you go into precipitated withdrawal maybe, but we would have our talk sessions. We'd have a check-in. And how were you with cravings today? Every single day I was like, man, they were terrible. I never thought I could get over cravings. Obviously it worked out now, but it was rough the first few weeks.
Okay.
But we'd have little activities and just talk about how our days were going and strategies to help us to stay off of it, mindfulness and everything. After a few weeks, they did get me on the Suboxone, and it was just, I don't know, maybe it works for some people, but it didn't work for me. I couldn't take that responsibility either.
Okay, so that's interesting. You were already detoxed off of Kratom, and they gave you the Suboxone to use for cravings mostly.
And it was when I was still like in the middle of the program, like the nurse they had working for them prescribed it.
How long were you on it? And did you find that you were just taking more than prescribed, or did it just have side effects?
I was definitely abusing it. I couldn't take that responsibly. And I think the withdrawals, if I were on it long term, I think they were worse than Kratom. I think their irritability, anxiety, depression just skyrocketed. I think it got worse.
Definitely, if you come off Suboxone cold turkey, it could definitely be a shock to the system. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's for sure. What's your life like now? How have you been able to maintain sobriety from Kratom and from everything else for the last 2 years? Are you working a program? What's that look like?
I am in a few groups, like on Facebook. I've tried the meetings a few times. It's great to just even give support to other people. And that's a really big reason I wanted to come on your podcast is I know people are in various stages of recovery and their usage, and they like to hear different accounts of what people are going through. I'll lurk on Reddit too and see what people are dealing with. But it's been well over 2 years. So much better now. I never thought I could feel like this again, feel okay. Obviously, I'm on like any depressant. That obviously helps. But just staying off of it, realizing how much it's damaging your relationships, how much it's damaging your financial health, and just knowing you need to quit. That's really helped. People out here a lot, but exercise is great, and drinking lots of water. It's anything to rebalance your life.
I wonder, a lot of times, I think with a lot of podcasts that are centered around recovery, we tend to get a lot of people in early to mid-stage recovery and maybe not a lot in longer-term recovery. So I have a question for you that maybe is a bit specific. I'm just curious, what was like the first 30 days, then the first 60, then the first year, the first second year? Like, how did your recovery progress over the last 2 years? Just curious to hear your experience and how maybe you've gone from having cravings to where you are now.
Great question too. First 30 days, I'm just going to be honest, they were hell.
No,
First
please
month,
be honest. We don't want to scare anybody, but we want to prepare people.
Exactly. That's all I'll say. I don't want to scare anyone, but you got to pay the piper. You went through all this time going through this and doing this to your body. You're going to have to pay for it to quit. But I know the first 30 days were just hell. Probably the first, honestly, 2 months. It definitely isn't linear. You're going to have ups and downs. You just really have to stick to it. Again, I'm sure tapering, if it works for people, is a way easier route than cold turkey. But I just, with my brain makeup, I know I couldn't control myself.
I could never do it either. So don't feel
no, it's not for everyone. I could not just control my doses. I just had to stop. But So I know through the first year, I was doing a lot better. But the first few months, they were really tough. Mostly had irritability and just like feeling a doom, sadly. Nothing's even really happening, but you're just like, everything's bad.
I had that too I've been off Kratom now for over a year and a couple months. And sometimes I had that for the first, thank you. It's been great. But yes, I definitely noticed the doom. That's one of the things that led me to relapse a bunch too. With 3 or 4 week mark, it would drive you nuts.
So obviously so glad I stuck with it. All the support I had, my girlfriend the whole way has been amazing. I put her through a lot with this, the hiding and the sneaking around with it. That was really rough on her, but she's done a great job working through everything with me.
Do you feel like your relationship's been rebuilt well and you've been able to rebuild that trust?
Most definitely. It was rough for a while because I had to show her I had to earn her trust back, show her that she could trust me again. And that was rough. And it still is the thing what I put her through, but we're doing a lot better. She still is nervous sometimes. What if I relapse and I'm hiding it? But she is trusting me again. Sometimes we'll still find old bottles. It's crazy. Or old labels. She found like
in the back of the closet or something.
Under her seat in her car one day, she found I was like, what is this? And I was like, oh, I promise I haven't touched that stuff. That's got to be so old. It's crazy what we still find just hiding more than 2 years later.
It's still, don't think I wore these jeans since like before the pandemic, and I found something in there a couple of weeks ago. I was like, that's definitely not
crazy.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it's funny. Have you been able to maintain sobriety from alcohol too? I was just curious if that's also been a demon you've had to battle with or how that's gone for you.
That's been an up and down journey too, but I'm trying to see if I can coexist with it. But I haven't had a drink since this March. So it's been about 5 months.
Okay, that's good. That's great.
I'm trying to take at least a long break and see how that goes. But no, so not complete sobriety since late 2019, but it's been a few months since I've had a drink. And sober life is great. There's always stuff to work through. I feel like I'm practicing meditating more on mindfulness and just trying to still have struggles sometimes. Just trying to learn how to live completely sober it's a challenge, but I know it's possible, obviously.
Since you've been away from Kratom now for a little while, if someone was struggling and would come to you and ask for your advice, what would your advice be to those people that might be listening that are just trying to break up with Kratom and be done?
I would definitely think about your relationship with your loved ones, because this is just, to me, and I think to everyone would agree, it's just not worth it. Picture what your life was before. I know maybe that's not the best thing, because I guess a lot of us are on Kratom to try to escape maybe inner demons or things we're dealing with in life. But just know that substances are not the way. You're just going to make everything worse in the long run. Really do try to move. Probably hear it a lot, but it really helps to build up your fitness back, they really help with endorphins and rebalancing a normal level of dopamine. And look for support wherever you can get it. Online support groups. If you don't have the means or the money to do any kind of program, just try to find support wherever you can get it. That solidarity with other people who have been through it, I think that's so valuable. And it's helped me a lot. You don't feel so alone. You'll probably hear this a lot too. Drink a lot of water. There are supplements you can find online. Oh, and here's some advice. Don't take too many of these supplements all at once, because I think that was a mistake I did early on. 5-HTP, St. John's wort, and I was on medication. I think that led serotonin syndrome, and that just made everything worse.
Oh, if you're taking like antidepressant stuff, that could definitely do that.
That was a problem. So just watch the supplements. Some things help. I mostly just stuck it out, tried to build my exercise tolerance back up. Again, drink a lot of water and just be strong. Look for support where you can find it. Family, friends, like I said, even strangers online, all of that helps. And you're going to come out, you will come through it on the other side and be so happy.
Definitely. That's all really good advice. As much as the withdrawals suck and it is tough, it's definitely doable. So if you're listening out there and struggling, we've done it. You can do it. It's worth it. It definitely is worth it.
If I can do it, you can do it. Cause it was rough. It was hell, but definitely so worth it.
And it does get better. Each day of that hell gets a little bit better.
It does. Like I said, it wasn't linear for me. It probably won't be linear for you, but it's like a stock chart. It'll go up and down, but it's always going up. Exactly.
And that's life. Life when you get sober, it's ups and downs. It's not going to be just roses all the time, but the highs are better than they ever would be when you're using. How would you describe your life today, Kratom free? What's it like?
It's good. It's a lot better. I'm finding a good work-life balance. Like I said, I've repaired relationships, feel the love from everyone, family, friends who want the best for me. I might not feel like it, but they remind me all the time how strong I am and how strong I've been. Life today, feeling their love and getting interested in my hobbies again, video games, exercise, all of it gets easier, a lot calmer. Oh man, and not needing to just rely on making sure I have enough of this crap to get through the day. Oh, and that's another thing, going on vacations, man. I'd have to buy like sometimes boxes of stuff and just make sure I had enough so I would be able to function during a vacation. Not needing to worry about any of that ever again is amazing. It's so liberating.
It really is liberating because after a while when you're on Kratom or any substance really, it no longer is about getting high or escaping. Exactly. It's just about getting really...
You're just trying to function and use it to get through the day at a certain point. It's exactly the problem.
And that's no way to live.
No, not at all. Nothing positive about that.
No, not at all. Since you mentioned travel, if money was no object and you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go and why?
I've always wanted to go to Japan. Probably guess from what I was talking about earlier. Just the culture, at least the nerdy stuff like anime and all that. Tokyo looks amazing and the whole country looks beautiful. And I would love to go there. And I plan to one of these years. I love some of the food, like sushi. I'd love authentic Japanese sushi.
I've never been to Japan either. I'd love to go. It looks like a really interesting place for a lot of reasons.
Be a culture shock, but it would be a great one.
I bet it would, for sure. All right, maybe one or two more questions, and then I think we could maybe wrap up. If you had to have one top tip to give someone if they were getting ready to quit Kratom, what would your one top tip be?
A little conflicted here. I would think... So maybe make a list of all the things that would improve. I don't want to say pros and cons because I really don't want people to focus on what they think would be the pros, whether that's right or wrong. Think of every way your life will get better when you quit and make a list and read it every day to yourself. And I think that'll help with motivation big time, personally.
That's a really good tip.
Helped me. I think I didn't do that, and I really think that would have helped me back then. Obviously, I'm good now, but I think that would have been a big help, big motivator.
I think it would be too. I didn't do that either, but now that you mention it, I think that would be good. And I think you mentioned at the beginning, your girlfriend said make a plan. I think that's also a really good tip. Always make sure you have a plan when you're going to quit. Because
definitely have a plan.
All right. Is there any questions you have for me or anything else you want to talk about or share with our audience?
I do have an interesting comment. I think slowly the word is getting out how dangerous this stuff is. I know there have been obviously sadly some deaths attributed to kratom overdose, but most people probably know Louisiana is like the only state where we're divided into parishes, not counties. And recently a parish really close to where I live in Orleans Parish called Tangipahoa Parish. They have actually banned the use of kratom in the parish. And I guess they're really having issues over there. It's really close to New Orleans and it's like the only instance I've heard of. So it's one tiny like little geographical area. Still the word's like getting out that this stuff is not safe and shouldn't be just sold over the counter to anybody. that was within the past maybe 2-3 weeks that happened.
Interesting. I've seen there's been some local activity over the last few years of local ordinances restricting or banning kratom. There's a couple things. Okay. There's a couple of things going on at the state level. There's a lot of activism in the pro side still, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on where you come down on it. I would personally probably like to. I think bans sometimes do more harm than good, but I'd like to see, like you said, more knowledge about the negative side effects, because I think it's still, if you go online or in a lot of forums, there's still a lot of, I don't know, I would say undue positive information about kratom and not enough talk about the potential negatives, which is unfortunate.
No, I agree with you. I think it's sad how those who are so pro kratom, they'll like just bash people who are just sharing their negative experiences, like who are going through really tough times, really bad depression and anxiety because of this. And what, do they think we're lying for some reason? Just the hate from the pro kratom crowd, that needs to stop. I don't know how it would stop, but I hate to see that.
I don't know how it'll stop either. I don't like seeing it either. I think it's a wrongly misdirected sense of trying to protect the plant, if you will. Like they don't want any negative scrutiny on it because they don't want to potentially lose access to it. But I think it's, no one goes to, if an alcoholic says, hey, I have a drinking problem, like no one's telling them that they're full of crap and Budweiser's the best thing on the planet. There's a way you can, I don't know, defend your access to a substance without downplaying its negative effects. And I think it'll actually have the opposite effect in the long run, because the more you sweep something under the rug, the more it ends up coming out and being a bigger deal in the end, usually.
Definitely.
But I think, unfortunately, a lot more people are struggling, and it's bringing more attention, but it'll probably get worse before it gets better, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. I'm glad more information is getting out there and people are learning more about it. Just, like you said, state level, we'll see how it's regulated in the future.
I think we shall see. I think one of the things that would probably kick it into gear is if something bad happened with a senator's kid or something like that.
That's a good point.
But who knows? Anything could happen. We'll leave it there. Blaine, thank you so much for giving us some of your time and for sharing your story. And congrats on more than 2 years off kratom. That's huge.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right. Have a nice afternoon.
All right. You too.
Kratom in the headlines. And the segment is entitled Medicinal or Malicious, Tangipahoa Parish Bans Sale of Kratom. So in my interview with Blaine this week, he mentions that this parish near where he lives, and near New Orleans, Louisiana, has recently banned kratom. So actually, after the interview, I did some digging, and I found this recent clip from late July where they were talking about the ban that was passed unanimously by the Tangipahoa Parish. So they have banned the sale of kratom and criminalized it essentially in their town. Just as a refresher, myself and the podcast aren't pro banning of kratom. We're for by what I would probably classify as sensible regulation, and we could debate what that means. But essentially, we do like to report on these sort of things because they're of interest to folks in the kratom recovery community. So this 3-minute segment just outlines the ban that was just enacted recently in Tangipahoa Parish, Louisiana. It does an interview, and they speak to a local doctor in the area, Courtney Washington, who notes that kratom is not safe. She knows it's dangerous, and that just because it is legal or was legal in this parish's case, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily a safe product. The newscast also spoke with one of the members of the American Kratom Association, who said that the decision was misguided, and that kratom helps with this particular individual's age-related ailments and with pain, and blamed the adulteration of kratom products as the cause for all the woes in the kratom market, which I don't really believe. So essentially, the police chief is also quoted from this area stating that he says, and I quote, "There's a proactive push to get rid of this stuff across the nation." I don't know if that's necessarily true. I haven't really seen a lot of proactive pushing in my area, maybe in one or two places, but not really a proactive push necessarily. I think a lot of people still don't even know what Kratom is, necessarily what it is capable of doing when it comes to addiction and physical dependence and that sort of thing. But anyways, just thought this was an interesting article that you may enjoy. So give it a watch or a listen and keep it Kratom free.
Resource of the week. I'm going to share a new website for you. It is called kratomquitters.com, and it's hosted by the folks that run the 8 o'clock Eastern meeting through the Facebook group. And they now have meetings 7 days a week, Monday through Sunday at 8 o'clock. You can go to the website. It has the link to the Google Meet room that they have, has the schedule of the hosts, and it has a bunch of other resources that are available, including a upcoming marathon they're going to be doing in August over a weekend of back-to-back meetings. There's a link to the Signal group associated with the There's a Way Out group. And they have a waiting list, a mailing list for those who might be interested in a summer gathering in 2025. So check that out. Once again, kratomquitters.com. This is a project of Decima. And until next week, keep it Kratom free.